Okay, so today I want to take on this quick front end challenge. As you can see, this is what we'll be building today. It's going to be HTML, CSS, very simple, very bare bones, no JS. Okay, so first things first, I see a color palette, right? I have the Figma files and I see a color palette. What do I think of when I see a color palette? I think of CSS variables. We don't want to repeat ourselves. We don't want to, it's just overall better. And let me show you how we do that, right? Let's first go ahead and target our root element or our root document element. It's like an all-encompassing selector for the whole web page, in a sense, right? Let's call our first variable primary, right? Primary. Okay, and this is going to be like that salmon color, the salmonella color of pink. And let's just go ahead and check out our Figma file. Let's copy and paste that right here. That looks about right. And then we'll do a color secondary, maybe. Color secondary. And then we'll go ahead and do this green color. We'll call it the secondary. It's probably not secondary, but you know what? Why not? And then we'll do the secondary dark as this like purplish. I mean, it's kind of darker, right? Maybe. Primary dark. Looks pretty primary and pretty dark to me, don't you think? So we'll copy that right there. Okay, cool. So now let's look at our HTML. Let's go back to our Figma file. And what are we looking at, right? We have a background image. I'm pretty sure this is an image, and I'm going to use an image. I'm not going to do this with CSS. And then we have a main container. Inside this container, we have two other containers. These two other containers is going to be this guy right here, and then these two right here. So that's two containers within one container. So let's go ahead and do that, right? But first, we cannot forget to link our CSS. You know what? I'm going to turn on Copilot because I'm a senior developer and I still don't remember these things. And Copilot saves my life sometimes. So BRB. Okay, Copilot turned on. I am now cheating officially. Boom. There we go. And let's just make sure that this is working. H1, hello world. And there we go. Perfect. Cool. Okay. Next up is we want to create, like I said, this main container right here, right? We'll go ahead and remove this H1 because we don't need it. And then I'll do M abbreviation, look it up, download, or I think it's an extent. I don't know what it is, but it's beautiful, right? You do dot and I'll do inner container. So that's a div with the class name of inner container. And inside this inner container, again, what are we going to have? Our hero text and our form stuff, right? So we'll do another container, another div element with the class name of hero text, I believe. Yeah, hero text, why not? And then another one of, form container, right? So now we have these two things, right? Inside of the hero container, we're gonna have an H1, right? And I believe, what was the text? It was learn to code by watching others. See, Copilot already knows somehow. It's probably, some of you guys have probably already taught it with this challenge. I got it from Frontend challenge, Frontend mentor, or Frontend something like that, right? Learn to code by watching others with a line break because we want it to break at this exact place of the actual text, right? So watching others. Okay, and you know what? Hopefully that actually makes sense because you're watching me and hopefully you're learning something or just having some entertainment. I don't know, whatever it is that you're getting out of this video, I don't know. Let me know, actually. I'm actually kind of curious, right? And then here, there we go, right? Is that actually what is... Yeah, see, you guys have been teaching Copilot too much, right? It's learning and it's crazy. Let's actually go back to this right here. So, looking not too shabby. It looks like poo-poo, but it's fine because we haven't styled it yet. Now, let's go ahead and do our form container. Inside our form container, what do we have? We have a button and a form. So I think we're going to do a button with the class name of CTA. And then what's inside this button, right? It's gonna be text, but you see that this text right here is bolded and the rest of it is actually just regular text. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a strong HTML element, strong HTML element. And what is it? Try it for free 7 days. Try it for free 7 days. And then we'll do a space and then we'll do a span. I don't think we need a span, but whatever, I'll put it anyways. Then $20 per month thereafter. Thereafter, I've never really used that phrase, but sure. Thereafter. And let's see how that looks. Yeah, sure. See, we have the bolded and we have a button with the bolded text split up with the regular size text, right? Let's remove that period. Okay. Next, we have this form element. So let's go ahead below our button. We're going to do a form with an action of pound because this is fake. It's actually not going to be redirected anywhere. We're not going to use that. We're not going to have any action for it, right? And what do we have next? We have 4 inputs, right? We have a first name, last name, email, and password, and they all have to have their correct types of inputs. So let's go ahead and do an input type text, placeholder, first name. That looks about right. And I'm sure it's going to give me the last name as well because it's very, Copilot knows this because this is kind of every form has this. Email and password. That is just about right. And one thing to note is that the type has to be the correct type. For first name and last name, a type of text is perfect because we don't really need any first line of validation. But for the email, the type of email is correct because we could have some in-browser validation. So if it doesn't look like an email, the browser would be like, hey, that's not an email. But you can't rely on just this right here. You have to have some more in-depth validation either on your back end, actually mostly on your back end. But that's just a little tip for future reference. Same thing with password. But we won't be doing any of that today. This is just creating a front-end application and really probably a very quick and dirty way to do it. Why not? Okay, so next up is we have this button and a disclaimer little small text right here. So let's create that button. I believe we should keep this inside the form, right? And look at that. Copilot just knows. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that suggestion. Yes, I know you know everything, Copilot, but I'm stop. I'll get to that right now. The button with the class submit, claim your free trial. I believe that's exactly what it is that we need. Sure. Okay. Next thing is that we'll keep it inside the form by clicking the button you are agreeing to our sure, right? And let me just break this down a little bit, right? We have a p tag. It looks tiny. Let me zoom this in right here. A p tag, and then we have a link. So how does that look like? We have a p tag with the anchor HTML element inside with terms and services. Again, href of pound because really it's fake, but usually we would have maybe terms, but it's fake. Again, pound. And let's see how that looks. We'll check our document. And again, it looks like poo poo pee pee caca. And we have this right here. Let me actually zoom in because you probably cannot see this at all. Where's that coming from? Oh, yeah, Copilot, you suck. We don't need that. Maybe just space here. I think that's enough. Yeah, there we go. Copilot, you're not as smart as you think you are, okay? You're not that guy, right? Anyways, is that all we have for our HTML? Wow. Okay. Not too bad, right? Not too bad. We're looking pretty good. I think on to styling this thing, right? First things first, this background image. Let's go ahead and let's put the background image on this body. Usually I wouldn't do it on the body only unless it's going to be the same background image across the whole website. Maybe, but just for now, we'll just do that. And we'll actually be more specific with, I don't know, we'll put this as a BG of a class name. Why not? So now let's move on to our actual styling. Back to our styling because we already have our CSS variables. Let me try to zoom in a little bit more just for you guys. Body will do a background image with the URL. And I believe this should be bg.png. And let's see how that looks like. We'll save that. And we'll go back to here. Boom. Perfect. Awesome. 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 One thing we want to do also is we want to align this vertically and horizontally. So we want it to live right here, right here. And how do we do that? Is first, you know what? Let me actually do something for you guys. I'm going to open up this inspector so you guys could actually see it, zoom it in. Some of you guys might be a little bit blind, maybe. And let's first look at the body, right? The body, okay, cool. Let's just start there, right? The body will do a display flex, just regular display flex. We'll do a justify content center, align item center. Yes, but I will get to that right now, Copilot. Let's see what this does, right? It does align it horizontally, but not vertically. You might have seen why with the height, right? We have the body. The body's height is only as large as the content. So what we need to do is make the height to fit the whole viewport. in order for it to actually be centered vertically. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and add a height of, get out of my way, viewport height. So that's 100% of the viewport height. There is other ones like, I believe, DVH, dynamic viewport height, which is good for mobile and stuff like that. But we'll just do 100 viewport height just for a quick and dirty solution, right? And let's see how that looks. Boom, amazing. This is too zoomed in. Sorry, guys, but I'm gonna have to zoom out a little bit, maybe like that. So what else is missing, or what's wrong with this, right? We have learning to code on the left side and our form on the right side. Right here, we have learning to code on the top and then the form on the bottom. So we need to flip this. We need to flip it somehow, right? How do we flip it somehow? Display flex. But first, let me show you what element we'll be dealing with, right? Right here, we have the inner container, and then we have the hero text and the form container. So we need to flip these two in a row, right? So how do we do that? By giving the inner container. Let's target the inner container. Inner container, display flex. And I think with just the display flex alone should be enough to flip it horizontal or in a row, but obviously doesn't look great. It obviously doesn't look great because we have some type of spacing right here on the sides. Usually some people, amateurs use padding or margin, but the pros, we actually use a fixed width. Let's see, I don't know, 1200 pixels. Does that do anything? 1200 pixels of a width? Not necessarily. Let's do 800 pixels width, and let's actually do a max width. Because then it's more responsive. Try to use max width where you can if you want to stay responsive, right? Let's see if that looks better. That looks pretty damn good to me, right? Let's do a little bit of comparison. Let me just show you again what we did. For the inner container, we gave it a display flex. Right here, you can see what we did to it. We give it a display flex and a max width of 800. So this is 800 pixels wide and it has display flex, meaning that these are now flex items. I mean, nowhere near close. I mean, it's actually pretty close, whatever. But what are we missing? Look at the font. Look at the font. That is terrible. What font are they actually using? They're using Poppins? Poppins? I'm guessing that's what they use across the whole website. There's no way this is a default Poppins, or is it? Yeah, Poppins. Save. Wow. Okay, so it is actually a default font family to Chrome. I would not recommend doing this because if, let's say, Firefox doesn't support Poppins, they're going to go back to using this or sans serif, right? That's the fallback. So I would either import your own font files just to actually like load them onto your website. Another thing to note is that if we go to our inner container and actually look at individual items in here, so the hero text and form container, they're different sizes. According to our Figma, they're about the same width, and I think it's better to have the same width, right? So how do we do that? We know that these are both flex items, right? So this is what we could do. So we have hero text and form container. What you could do is do hero text and dot form container. Yes, Copilot, exactly. We want to give it a flex of 1. So we're giving flex of 1 to both of our containers, right? So both of these have now a CSS declaration of flex 1. And you could only do this if the parent container has a display of flex, okay? And what am I looking at? By watching others. I messed up the HTML right there. Let me go back. Yes, by watching others. There we go. Okay. So now obviously the next thing is to change this to a white font. We have the hero text and the H1 and the P, but I want to target the hero text specifically. So how do I do that? Let's go ahead and do hero text on CSS. And then we will just delete that and we'll make this a color of white. Okay, let's see how that looks. Perfect. There is a crazy margin bottom here. It's a lot less. Something looks wrong, right? Something looks wrong. And also this text is a lot bigger. So let's fix that. Let's do .hero text h1. And then we'll do a margin bottom of, I don't know, 10 pixels. Does that do something good that we want it to? It looks better. And then we will do a hero text P Let's actually do 12 pixels just to kind of keep it as close as possible to this, right? And then we'll add a gap right here because we clearly have a little gap right here. So let's do that. And how do we add the gap? We go back to our inner container and then we add the property or the declaration of gap. So we go back to the inner container and we give it a gap of 20 pixels. Why not? Looks better. Looks better. I mean, not the best, but looks better. Now let's move on to our form. More specifically, this button right here. Let's look at our Figma file. It is purple and it has a box shadow. And it has a lot of, it's pretty standard. It looks pretty clean, I would say. So let's go ahead and do that, right? We have padding. We have this box shadow. We have some rounded corners. So let's start with that. But let's actually first see what we're targeting. Let's close this up. We are targeting the form container. Let's open this up. And we are targeting this button with the class of CTA. So let's be pretty specific and do this. Dot form container button with the class of CTA, right? Just being as specific as possible. That's, you kind of really want to do that. It's best practice. So we know that the background color, what is it? Was it the purple, right? Was it purple? Yeah, it was a purple, right? And then we had, let's see how that looks. Purple. And then we want it to have a width of 100%. So it can span out through the whole form, right? Width of 100%. What else do we want? We want the font to be of color white, right? We want some padding on here. Let's do 0.8 rem and 0 or maybe like 20 pixels. Let's see how that looks. So this is going to be the padding that's going to be inside. So look, we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere, right? Next thing we want to do is the rounded corners. And you see this black border. We don't want this black border. So first we'll do the rounded corners. My shortcut that I love, Mr. Brad Pitt, which is a border radius. Let's do 8 pixels with a border of none, correct, and a cursor of pointer, correct. Let me just actually backtrack a little bit. Border none, that's going to give this no more of that black border, right? And then we want to do a cursor pointer, I believe. Yes, because now when we hover over it, we get that little Mickey Mouse pointer, right? We want to focus on this. Let's go back to the design. This bottom box shadow. A box shadow is one of those things where developers will never really truly understand like the actual declarations of it, but we know that it's out there and that we just could find it somewhere on the internet, find a nice one, right? So let me actually play around a little bit. The property name is box shadow. Watch. So let's see what this gives me. Like I said, we have no idea what really these actually mean. I mean, we do, but like we won't remember it, and that's fine. So let's see what happens when we do this. Some tiny box shadow that we get. I'll be right back and I'm going to give you the actual values that we need. Okay, so these are the values that we need. 7 pixels being, I believe, the Y coordinate of how low you want it to be. This is the blurriness, so we want 0 blurriness, and this is the actual color and opacity of the shadow. So let's see how this looks like, right? There we go. See, we don't want any blurriness because that's not how it looks right here. And what we want to do is add a little bit of margin bottom to this button, so we could really, really see that box shadow. So margin bottom of 15 pixels, maybe. Looks pretty good to me, right? Let's compare this to our project. our Figma file. Looks pretty good. Although we could actually probably work out this font right here. It looks a little bit different. So let me see if a smaller font size will fix that. 14, 12. I think that looks about right. That looks pretty good to me. Next thing we want to do is actually do this form element, right? So what it is a white background with, again, our Brad Pitts on the corners, our border radiuses or radii. And we want to style our inputs because right now they look terrible. Another thing to note is that these inputs right now are in rows and columns, we only want one column, right? And then we also have a button, very similar to this, just really a different color. And then our disclaimer, right? So let's first start on this form element, right? So let me show you what we're going to be targeting. We already targeted the button. Next, we're going to target this form element. Going back to our code, we're going to target our form, right? But it is inside the form container. We'll be specific as possible. Form container and then form element, right? And then, no, these are not good suggestions. We will do a background color of white. So let's just save that and I'll just show you what we're working with right now, right? A background color of white. That's looking pretty, it's a good start. We do need some padding and again, our inputs and everything else, right? So let's then add padding. Let's do 10 pixels top and bottom and then 20 pixels right and left and right. This is the shortcut. Memorize it. It's actually very handy and it comes clutch. And then our boy Brad Pitt comes into play. And then a quick UI design tip. You kind of want to be pretty consistent. I'm going back to our Figma file. Or actually just here, right? This Brad Pitt that we have right here it's going to look great if we stay consistent with this Brad Pitt that we have for our form, right? We could create a variable for it as well, but like our variables here, we could do a variable of Brad Pitt, and then we'll do no, not a picture of Brad Pitt, but 8 pixels, right? And then this is how we could use it. So since we have a Brad Pitt of 8px, again, Brad Pitt or rounded corners, we'll do a variable of Brad Pitt, and then once again, a variable of Brad Pitt. And why this is so nice, if we ever want more or less of the border radius, we could do 2 pixels just right here, and it automatically updates both the button and the form and anything else that is actually assigned to this value, right? So we'll go back to 8 pixels. What's missing? Let's see. What's missing? Yeah, the inputs. Okay, so right now we pretty much just finished up with our form. Let's open up our actual form container, and inside we have all of our inputs and the button. But let's focus on our inputs, right? Our inputs need to be in one column, right? As well as our button and our disclaimer. It's just one column. So if anything, we're gonna go back to our form element and we're gonna give this a display flex, but instead of doing a row like we did for these two, we're gonna do a column. We're gonna give this a display flex, but flex direction of column, okay? And there we go. Let me just show you what we did. The form, we gave it a display flex and a column. So now every little item inside here is in a column form. So now we could focus on actually styling our inputs. And how do we do that? I'm going to copy this, be specific, and then target all of our inputs. Each input should have a margin bottom of, I don't know, maybe 10. Each input has some padding inside. Each input also has some Brad Pitt on the corners. Some border radius. We'll see what else we need, right? So what did I say? We have margin bottom of, let's say 15 pixels, right? And let's see how that's looking so far. Perfect. So now we have a good, decent margin bottom of 15 pixels. Okay, and then let's add padding of, let's say 10 pixels top and bottom, and then 20 left and right. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks pretty good. And you know what? Something's off. The form padding is completely off. I think we may have, so the form padding, this should actually probably be something like 30 pixels all around. So let's do this. So padding 30 pixels all around, I think that might look a little better. Yeah, see, that's a lot better. Now let's go back to our mockup. Again, we have a little bit of border radius. And I wouldn't say it's the same 8 pixels as the form and this button. So we'll actually probably cut that in half. I know I said to stay consistent, but you know what? I think this looks better. So let's go back to our CSS and we'll give it a Brad Pitt border radius of 4 pixels. And let's see how that looks. That's our mockup and this is ours. Okay, so you could see that something's wrong, right? Our border is completely dark. Let's go back to make it look more like this right here. So we'll go back to our CSS and we'll do a border of 1 pixel solid, and we'll go light gray for now, right? And then we'll see how that looks like. There we go. That looks a lot better to me, right? So now we can move on to our next button, which, like I said, going back to our mockup, it's going to be so similar to this guy right here. So we could kind of do a little copy and pasting action, right? But let's actually go ahead and target that button. Let me go back to here and seeing what we did. We gave it a class of submit, right? That's going to be a class form.submit. Okay. And then we will go back to our other button and let's just copy and paste everything and see what happens. Let's see what happens. I mean, what's left? The color. So let's just change the color. Background color, it was not this guy right here. What was it? The green? Secondary. And let's save that and let's see how that looks. And let's compare it to our mockup. Looks pretty close, although our font size could be a little bit thicker. Or sorry, not our font size. Our font could be a little bit thicker. So let's do bold. Let's see how that looks. Still doesn't look right. Letter spacing. The letters are a little bit too close together. So let's do a letter spacing of, I don't know, 2 pixels. Closer. Close enough. 1.5. I might just be okay. That's okay with me. Claim your free trial. And now let's do our disclaimer, right? I didn't actually, I'm going to give it a class of disclaimer. So let me go back to my HTML. Right here, right? Let's give it a class of disclaimer or terms, but we'll just do disclaimer. We'll save that. And then we'll go ahead and just target it by putting disclaimer. Let's see what we want to do. First thing I can notice is that it's a text align of center, a font size way smaller than you would think, and a font color of gray. So let's add those things, right? Text align center, a color of, I would say light gray again. And what else did I say? Font size of, let's say 11 pixels maybe. Let's check how we look. That looks pretty dang good to me. It's probably, that's probably a little too light. I like doing this. Let's check that out. That looks pretty good to me. However, look at our link. It is not looking anything like ours right now. It's pink and it does not have an underline. Disclaimer, and then a tag, color. What was it? It was like that salmon color. VAR, color primary, and then text decoration of none because we do not want the underline. And that looks pretty good to me. It's not perfect, but it's pretty dang close, and I'm fine with that. The next thing that we notice is that this is living all the way up here, right? And how can we fix that, right? We have our left side and our right side. Our left side, we need to align it vertically. So we need it to line right here. We already saw this by adding a flex container to it, or adding a flex display to it, to our hero text, right? So let's do that. Let's go back to our hero text component, and we'll do a display flex. And I believe it's align item center. No, actually it is, but we need to give it a flex direction of column because remember, display gives you by default a flex direction of row. So we need to specify that it's going to be a column and that we want it to align the items to the center. Okay, no, it is not align items. Again, these are some of the things that you'll never remember. It's going to be justify content center. Just watch. It's one of those two. Exactly. Again, it doesn't look perfect. It does not look perfect by any means. If anything, it looks terrible. But let me actually try to fix this up real quick by maybe making this font size a little bit bigger, right? Our H1 font size, I doubt it's too... 0.5. Okay, actually it was 2.5. And then our p tag, let's go ahead and do 1 rem or 1.2, 1 or 0.8. I mean, that's pretty close to me. That's very close, very, very, very close. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. You could obviously make it mobile responsive as well. I'm not gonna do that right now because it's very simple. It's really just adding a media query that when it becomes mobile, you want this to become, rather than a row, you want it to become a column. And it's very simple. Since we use the max width, it's gonna shrink down pretty well and it's gonna be pretty responsive. So that's all I got for you guys for today. I know this was kind of hectic, but that's just how I like to do things. So if you like it, just let me know. If you like a different style, if you want me to slow down, anything like that, just let me know. And I don't know, maybe we'll figure something out.